What's going on, guys? It was in a block in the garage with the 1950 model Dodge. Today we're talking about primer, prepping your bare metal, getting it ready for paint. So we have the SMR-295, which is the universal self-etching primer, and we also have the SMR-230, which is a medium gray aerosol primer. We're going to start bare metal, get it ready, prime for paint, and then we'll do the paint process. Get this question a lot. Where do I start at? How do I make it work? And how does it not come back to haunt me in the future? Let's get started. Okay, small parts for the Dodge. What's going on, guys? It was on the block, back again in the garage with the 1950 model Dodge, and we were just about ready to get this thing in primer. I got a little bit of sanding just to clean up the door gaps, and I think that's it for the front. So before I pull the fenders off to do the final sanding, before priming, before sanding again, I'm going to take care of getting this row of small parts out of here. I've got some interior trim pieces here, the inside of the window frame. There's a gravel guard for the front, one for the back that's sitting over there. I'll put on the stand, and then the top of the door seals or door trim, that's over there on that side. I've also got a couple upper door trim panels that I'll paint at the same time. So I figured this is a good time to talk about small parts and how to prep your small parts for paint, especially when they're real small and you're thinking, how do I get this thing painted? So here's an example of one. This was blasted or sanded down by the owner, and this piece, if you look real closely, it wraps around the side. Walk in front of the camera here. Wraps around, so the paint goes back here all the way around the front, all the way back to here. Because of that, it mounts flush or mounts flat, but even with it being mounted flat, you can see there's a little rolled edge there. We want to make sure that we get all of this painted in its entirety from front all the way back to here. So I'm going to be painting on top of these little guys here. These, you can pick these up at your local hardware store. Just a little paint stand. It works really good for these because there are already holes in here. You can hear the rooster out there talking to me. These holes will just set in alignment with the pen like so. I'll set it up like that, and it's pretty stable. It's not going to blow off of there. These are pretty handy little tools. Now what this is going to do is allow me to prime all around, paint all around, without hanging it vertical like this, where you can potentially get runs or drips. So I've done it both ways. I found out this is more effective and less chance for error. Now on this one here, it's got little holes in the back as well, and it is flat on the back side, so we're not necessarily worried about this, but we want to make sure our paint wraps all the way to the very edge. So we'll do the same thing with this one. Set on some stands, and we'll go ahead and get these primed and ready for some paint. This one's a little more wobbly, as you can see. Kind of trying to walk off of there, so we'll keep an eye on it. If I need to, I'll put a little piece of two-sided tape on the bottom side just to hold on there nice and secure. That's another thing you can do. I'm gonna grab some wax and grease remover. We're gonna go ahead and clean these up really good, and then I will get them primed, wet sand these down, seal them, base coat, color coat, clear coat. The rest of the parts are pretty well prepped, except for maybe the gravel guard at the front. So I will guide coat and just block sand that. It just sits between the front bumper and the grill. Not really a lot to see here. Most of it's going to be covered, but we're going to go ahead and get it as smooth as possible. For all of you who asked the question, how do I do my priming work? We have some bare metal here, and we have two types of primer. I get this question a lot, especially like, do I use the 2790G? Do I use an etching primer? Do I use an epoxy primer? Do I use this? Do I use that? Several ways to make this happen, several ways to make it work. My recommendation, if you have bare metal that has no etching, in other words, you stripped it down and it's shiny. Now, to give you an example, this is bare metal with no etching, okay? See the shine, the sheen? Whereas this other part that I have here is bare metal with the etching left. You see it's not shiny, it's opaque in color, so the etching is still left on this piece of metal. That's the difference. Side-by-side comparison, you can see the difference between the two, okay? So that's your difference. if you don't have any etching, you either want to put etching primer or epoxy primer on that part. That will ensure that your paint sticks to the metal and you don't have anything to haunt you in the future. Now, if you don't, you could potentially put yourself in a situation where you have something to deal with in the future. Now, this is a great product. You can use this on just about anything. You can even use this on small areas of bare metal. So if you've got something like this small part, this 230 will do the job. I'm using this to show you if you were to use the larger part. That's why I have this here. So if you got big bare metal, you got a whole fender, whole side of a car, an entire car, whatever it is, etching primer first or epoxy primer. Either one of those will work. Doesn't matter which one you use, not really. They're both just as good. People are gonna argue in the comment section, that's fine, I don't care, whatever. Knock yourself out. You can use either one. I've used both, I've had success with both. Make sure that you prep it, get it clean. You want the metal as clean as possible. Also, make sure that you use wax and grease remover or a good degreaser to make sure that your clean metal is actually clean. Because as this metal looks clean, I will show you right now with this rag, with this wax and grease remover, that clean piece of metal is not as clean as it looks. Even though it's been stripped, it's been wiped down, all of those things. No camera trick. You see that? The metal's not so clean. It looks clean. It's been handled. There's some contaminations coming up to the surface. So wipe it down with wax and grease remover. Use gloves. Don't be like me with your bare hands getting oil all over the metal. I'm going to grab some gloves. I'll be right back. All right, so got my gloves on, got my clean rag. And we're going to wipe it down again using gloves this time so we don't have any contaminants. Wipe it wet, wipe it dry, or blow it off, your choice. And we want to make sure it's good and clean. We want to make sure both parts are clean. Now this one that has the edge primer, it's not nearly as dirty. You can see there's a little bit of dirt there. Not nearly as bad, but always, 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 I cannot stress enough, wipe your parts down, make sure your parts are clean. Because that little bit of dust and dirt can make all the difference in the world. You wouldn't think it would, but it can. I'm gonna have to get the 2-sided tape out, I can already tell. Okay, now that they're prepped, we're gonna move in here and apply our primer to this one right here first. You're gonna wanna make sure that you shake this up really good. Always do a test spray away from your subject area. That way you don't get any surprises. You don't want any bad surprises. So test away from your area. There we go. We got a nice clean patch of primer right there. And you'll notice, typically I'm about 8 inches away from the subject, 8 to 12 inches depending on what you're doing. And we're going to use nice even patterns going back and forth, left to right. And then we'll hit it an angle down here, down like this, up to get up underneath these edges, here, here, on the back side, through here, and back there. All right, that's what your finished product should look like. A nice, even coat of primer. Now I will let this flash for about 15 minutes. I'll come back and I'll hit it with some more primer. But that's a good first pass. You've got nice even coverage. There's some small imperfections in there. We're not going to worry about those right now because this is just covering the metal. You can see the little, if you look real close, you can see those little divots in the metal. That's where the rust pits were at. And that's what we want to make sure we get coated. So your etching primer gets down all those areas. Make sure we get our ends covered, like so. So once this flashes, we'll hit it again. And then after the 2 coats of primer, we'll let it dry for probably about a half an hour. Make sure it's good and hardened out. And then we'll step it up to our standard aerosol primer. Well, this is basically like the 2790G, but in a can, so very handy. We'll use that on this one and on the one that's already got the etching on it. And then once we have that done, we'll be ready to wet sand them and they'll be ready for paint. Pretty easy on these small parts. Just take your time, don't rush, because if you rush, you're gonna find yourself sanding it back down again, and you'll spend more time on this little piece right here than on painting. Well, maybe not this whole thing, but just as an example, like you'll spend more time on this than you would on like a fender, because you can overdo it with too much paint, too much product, not enough dry time, and just rush it, and just it will take forever. I had that happen on a previous vehicle where I had a part that was this small and I repainted it 4 times before it was right because I had too much product and it was dripping or sagging, or I had paint peeling or wrinkling back. So many things can happen, so just slow down and take your time. This is here, I got sanded, primed again, sanded, and we're going to put our wax and grease remover on a rag like this, or with this and this, and put some gloves on and wipe these down, get some sealer on, and we'll get some color on. So essentially, I've gone over the block sanding cross hatch thing before. There's a short. I'll put a link at the top of the screen to that short. Shows you how to do your block sanding. All these pieces have been prepped and prepped again, and I'm going to prep and clean the last ones here. I've got this wax and grease remover and a sprayer, so I can just spray it on the rag and I wipe the pieces down. Now, if you're a channel OG, you've seen the cleaning process that I used before, but if not, I'll go over it real quick. I use a dry rag twice, and then I use wax and grease remover twice. This is after the dry rag, which was already dirty looking. In fact, I've got one here just to show you. This was the first pass, and this is the second pass. Or actually, this first and second pass here. This is the dry pass, this is the wet pass, and then we'll use the wax and grease remover one more time to make sure that we have everything off the surface of these parts. Clean, clean, and clean again is what I say, because if you don't, you'll miss something and it'll ruin your day. See, even more dust. So you may notice that when I'm doing my cleanup, I use a black rag if I'm doing cleanup over light gray primer. If I have a dark gray primer, I use a white rag. And the reason is because you can see if you got it clean or not. So there is a method to the madness. Let's get our filler, or let's get our sealer. Let's go back here and take a look at the paint bench. Now that everything's been cleaned and cleaned again. Seems like somebody burned something outside. All right, so we got that cleaned up. Got all these cleaned up. I'm gonna hold off on these pieces for the door. Unfortunately, there's some small imperfections on that one I saw when I put the wax and grease remover on there. So your wax and grease remover can also be your last check. It's important. Make sure you always check your stuff. That last check can save your day. Because the last thing you want to do is put paint on something that's not ready for paint. Back here at the paint bench, we're going to be spraying this right here, which is the SMR-265 ready to spray acrylic sealer in gray. And then we'll be putting on this 8555 or 955 or 9555 or 85 GM black. So this is basic GM black, and then our other colors right here, right there. You see that? You see that? That's it. That's all you get to see. And then we'll be covering it with the high solids clear from SPEEDOKOTE. This SMR-42. I love this stuff. I think it's a great product. Gives you a great deep shine. So we'll be putting that over top of, yes, you saw it. Sealer, base coat, mid coat, clear coat, tri-stage, boom, boom, boom. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Base clear, base mid clear. So that's what's gonna go on. Two coats of sealer, 2 coats of base, 2 mid coats, 2 coats of clear. The 2-2-2-2 system. On the car, we'll probably do 3 coats of clear. Who am I kidding? This house solid. We'll do 2. We might do 3. I don't know. But definitely, so 2 here, 2 there, and 2 there. Same process will be for the car. So I probably won't go over this again when I go to paint the car. I might, if I don't remember, if I do. But yeah, 2 coats of sealer, 2 coats of base, 2 coats of color, then your clear coat. I got a couple guns lined up here. I'm going to be using the Aero 500. I believe this is the R500. Yep, it's a little bit nasty there, but yeah, this is the R500. I'll be using this for the sealer. And I'll be using the golden gun for the black base coat. And probably for the color coat. And I might even use it for the clear since these are small parts. Now when I get to the actual body of the car, I'll be breaking out the Mark 1 MV1 for the clear, and I'll either use the Mark 1 for the base coat or the Intools 4000 for the base coat. Very similar looking guns. They're not the same. They look similar, but they are not the same. The spray caps are different on these guns. Very similar design, but anyway, I got those there. I've got another 500 back in the back. And if I run into a jam, I've got a couple more spray guns up here on the shelf, just in case. So I'll keep those up there. I'll probably use a solid cup. I'm probably not going to use the PPS system for what I'm doing on this one. I might use the PPS system when I do the car, so I can go ahead and lay all the paint cups out and just come over and swap the paint cups and keep it moving. I might do that, but that's to be determined. We'll find when we get a little bit closer. I think that's it. I am going to load some sealer in the gun. Let's get these parts sealed, and then we will get some base coat on. Glass it is. Glass it is. These little parts can be tricky, but they came out nice. Came out real nice. Got the rear gravel pan shot. Now you all looking at, yeah, there's some dust that was in the garage that fell on here. If you see that camera, but they're dry. So I'm not going to cut or buff these. You can see some little dust nibs and whatnot. My reason for that is this car is going to be assembled. It's got engine work, body work, or engine work and interior work to be done. And we'll come back after all that's said and done and cut and buff whatever needs to be cut, buffed, remove minor scratches, etc. But yeah, you can see it's shiny. Shining real good. Pretty cool color. Looks really cool outside. Let me see if I got my daylight. The old Astro 50 SL on there. There. Now you can see the rest of it. Now you can see the rest of that sparkle. it really lights up in the sunlight. See there, it's like, oh, it's kind of a burnt orange. More like a fiery orange. Loads and loads of pearl. Our auto paint HQ, candy, pearl, blaze, orange. That's the color. So candy, pearl, blaze, orange with the SMR-42. That thing's dusty. There's a lot of dust in here. Probably got dust nibs in the paint, but yeah. So candy, pearl, blaze, orange, SMR-42. You've seen it. That's what it looks like. That's what we're gonna do on the rest of that thing as soon as I finish the rest of this body work and get in some primer. That's gonna wrap it up for this video. It's been not too long of a day, but it was a few days getting all those parts prepped and ready. I think they're good, so we'll send those back to the owner because I'm gonna need all these body stands to finish putting the doors on the stands and the fenders on the stands to paint the insides of the rest of everything else so I can go and finish painting the rest of the car. It's a lot of moving parts still to go, but we're getting close. My name's Erwin. This is Three Wheels in a Block. We're giving back what time is taken away. Oh yeah, and I know you're like, there's no filter on that sand. There's no filter on that sand. My filters are over here. Where are they at? Right back here. Yep, they're back there. See? Dirty filters. There you go. Oh yeah. Where was that? That's right. Thanks for watching. My name's Erwin. This is Three Wheels in a Block. We're giving back what time is taken away. We'll see you soon.